All right, welcome to the next part of this lecture. We will start off by talking about control types. There are different types of controls, and these are the three main types of controls. You may find other other control types in other texts, but these are typically smaller categories. These are the main categories of control types. The first one we have are the preventive controls. Preventive controls are implemented to prevent an undesirable event from happening. So these controls are put in place to try and stop something bad from happening. So the development of these controls involves trying to predict potential problems that could occur and then implementing ways to avoid those controls. For examples, passwords. You require individuals to use logon IDs and passwords before they can get into systems. Or you can have another least privilege control, meaning you only give individuals access to what they need to perform their job function. So by doing this, you are preventing potential issues down the road. The next control type is the detective control. Detective controls are implemented to identify undesirable events that have already occurred. So for example, if your preventative control was not able to stop something from happening, you want to have detective controls in place so that you can actually identify if something bad already happened. So this could be a periodic review of user access to make sure that only the right individuals still have access. Or you can have several alerting and event management controls in place that notify when issues happen. So these all fall under detective controls. And the third category here is the corrective controls. Corrective controls are designed to correct errors or irregularities that have been detected. So if you already have issues that are ongoing and you are thinking of ways to fix them, that's when you bring in corrective controls. And one good example for corrective controls is the user training or retraining. So if you identify that user error is the reason why a lot of preventive controls are failing, then you may want to retrain or train users if they were not initially trained. Now, let's go over some control examples. The examples I have on the screen here are in no particular order, so we'll just go through them. The first one on the screen is access authorization, and the control reads, user access to the application must be authorized by the individual's manager prior to access being granted. Here you'd see the control element that talks about what the activity is, which is the approval or authorization by the individual's manager. And you understand that that should occur before the user access is actually granted in the application. So you can see that some of the elements we discussed previously are in this particular control. The next example that we have on the list is administrative access, and it reads, super user access to the SQL Server database is restricted to DBAs. Again, this also has the element of saying who the restriction is to, because you see here that it's talking first about the super user access in the database, and it's saying that only individuals that have a job role of DBA should have super user access to, and it tells you what, the SQL Server database. Again, you can see where some of those control elements that we discussed earlier have been covered. The third example we have is about terminated user access, and it reads, all terminated users have their network account removed within 2 days of termination. This is also very clear. It's talking about terminated users. It's talking about the access, specifically the network account access, and is given a duration, 2 days. Within 2 days of termination, network access must be removed. So it's very clear what this particular control activity is about. And the last one we have on this screen is a password control that reads, the Oracle database requires users to have passwords with at least 8 alphanumeric characters, and the password must be changed at least every 90 days. Again, you can see this is very specific. It's telling you this is for the Oracle database specifically, and it's telling you the characteristics or the settings, the configuration settings that must be enabled. So the password settings should have 8 alphanumeric characters that are noted, and then you also want to make sure that there's an expiration setting that says a password expires after 90 days, at which time it must be changed. Here are some additional control examples. This first one says physical access, and it reads, access to the data center is limited to IT personnel. And this one is also very clear. It's talking about the data center and access, and it's talking about the roles, IT personnel, that should have access. This control could be improved upon by stating if there's any groups within the IT group that should have access or shouldn't have access. That could be an improvement to this control, where you are a little bit more specific about who should have access to the data center. The next control we have on the screen is change management. All change requests to the organization's systems must be appropriately authorized, tested, and approved prior to implementation. This also has some of the elements we discussed, because you can see here we're talking about the change requests. That's the part of the control, and it's telling you the specific activities that have to occur for change requests, which includes authorization, testing, and approval before you implement it in production. So, which the word production is missing here. That's an improvement that we could add, but you can see here that several elements are present to make it very clear what this control is about. And the last control that we have here is IT policy training. And this states, the new hire orientation includes basic security awareness training, and upon completion, the new hire is required to sign that they completed the training. And you can see here that it's telling you what is occurring. The activity that's occurring is the training on security awareness. And you can see here that the evidence of that control taking place or being performed is the signature of the new hire that says that they have actually completed the training. And you can see some elements coming into play here. As previously discussed, all the elements we covered a few slides ago do not need to be present in every single control, but you need a good amount of those to make sure that control is very clear.